Welcome! With us, you're not just a listener, you're part of the community, the movement driving real progress. Let's explore how big ideas can turn into real-world positive impacts together. My name is Ronny Eriksson, and this is the Impact Series.
Faldbakken. You are at the forefront of driving positive global change through new forms of collaboration. You are the visionary leader and co-founder of Katapult Future Fest, a global event that brings together tech entrepreneurs, impact investors, and purpose-driven changemakers. You also co-founded the Katapult Cloud Conference and community platform, and you have been instrumental in projects like Girl Tech Fest, which empowers young girls by introducing them to technology and innovation. Your expertise spans across humanities, social impact, responsible tech, and consciousness, making you a sought-after public speaker and thought leader. Welcome, Ida.
Thank you, Ronny.
It's a great pleasure to be here. First and foremost, thank you for having us. Katapult Future Fest is starting today officially. We've been having the privilege to work hand in hand in the past months. It's been a journey. It's been a learning experience, but it's also been just really warm for the heart, I would say. We always start these episodes with an what-if question. And as all happening here is now about Katapult Future Fest, is right in the on our fingertips, I wanted to ask you this following what-if question. So what if the world had more community-driven impact festivals like Katapult Future Fest?
Well, that would be my dream, obviously. I think it's about spending time together as humans, heart to heart, eye to eye. We are physical beings. We're social beings. So that is important. What happens in the moments of creativity, exploration, imagination, and inquiring. And I really believe in communities as a tool for change and as conferences and gatherings for tools for cultural and social and systemic change.
In our world where the individualistic society is a bit taking over, so our society really wants us to be individualists. We can see that the happiness is actually going down, while in the community-based societies, people are a lot more happy. You're doing a really important job, so you're actually bringing people together, igniting that work to actually be done. I've seen a couple of your talks, and you talk about this. Why is it so powerful?
I think it's because the power lies in between us, right? And also making situations where we can brave together and activate our full potentials. And I think that if we treat these gatherings at places where we can practice together, practice being human, prototyping, testing ideas, alongside, of course, meeting potential collaborators or investors or understanding what are the recent trends. But we look a little bit like bigger on what if these conferences and gatherings and these places and spaces where we meet could be catalyst for positive change in the world, and then feeling strength in that community.
I must say you're doing a good job in that, because I've had now multiple of these episodes, and the people are just like, where do you find them? Like the stories they have, the impact they're doing, it's like, it's real. It's you can feel it in just how they like talk. But then when you start actually look at the scores and the different thing in the background, like they are actually doing a pretty impressive job. So how can we help other people to do the same? Because it's not easy to get this level of people and this like magnitude of people to come. What is your like magic there?
What is the magic? What is the secret sauce?
Yeah.
Honestly, I think kindness is important. Honesty, transparency, and also giving people the opportunity to maybe talk about what they're not usually speaking about. So when it comes to putting together the program and the topics, I try to move a little bit beyond, and maybe also what you do in these interviews, right? The person behind the person, or the question behind the question, is always where I seek, and then try to put unusual suspect or create this diversity of voices, just, and it's literally about the participants. They are the magic.
Exactly. Yes, I think the one big beautiful realization is that the best audience, the best content of festivals are actually the audience, the people. They are what makes each event or festival or workshop or anything that is around there actually worth experiencing, because you hear not always the same story.
Yeah.
You hear something new. You get new viewpoints to things. Katapult has been around for, or Katapult Future Fest has been around for many years already. Where did it start from?
Actually, it started in Finland. It started at Slush. Well, also the Finnish people are the happiest people in the world, right? But the thing is, like, I have always come from the creative industries also, and working a lot towards music festivals, city development, like what happens on street levels, and how are these creative industries important for happy cities, or even creative cities, or the how many music festivals in a city, the food culture, like all these layers of cities that are so important. And a lot of it comes from festivals. So when I was at Slush, I think it's like really interesting to see like how that comes from the students and the university, and how that like community of people is really creating that movement, right? And I think that was 2015. And we were sitting there, and it's like, oh, we want something like this in Norway. But then Slush is like extremely good at what they're doing. So we were thinking, okay, we need to do something different, because it was a beginning of the blooming of, I would say, the startup ecosystem in Norway as well. So what we were or aiming to create with Katapult Future Fest, it was something that is not only like a business conference, not a startup conference, not a social impact conference, but something that lies in between. That both have the capital, but also have the activists, the change agents, and so on. And then also the entrepreneurs, the people with the solutions. And I think over the years, the first years that we created it, we were kind of the odd one out. The third year, we added consciousness at a big layer as well, well-being conscious, but also in general, like maybe, what if the imaginative, like explorative questions. And then now it seems like we're at this tipping point where many other gatherings and convenings are also doing something of the same. And a lot of things are moving towards also the system thinking and system change, and more complex kind of outlook on the world we live in. And so I think for Katapult Future Fest, it has been an iteration and a journey, and it's a constant evolvement and process. I think that is what maybe people notice, and what is important in the world, and just accept maybe there's things we don't know.
I had the privilege to join Katapult the first time last year. I fell in love with the whole concept, with the whole event, also with the weather that time. Now it's looking a bit rainy. Hopefully it doesn't. But what kind of like blew my mind most was how open people were to like make friends, make connections. And it was not everyone just pushing their own agenda on you. That happens in a lot of startup conferences. It was actually people wanting to know who you are. Where do you come from? How are things back at home? I think it was a lot more personal touch. And that got me like thinking a lot, that actually what you took from Finland and brought here, what you made here, we are actually now lacking in Finland. And hopefully we see maybe something similar happening here, that maybe I get inspired here, and maybe we see something of an evolvement of this again, like happening in Finland. And we get to play a bit of ping pong. If we look a bit more ambitiously towards the future, say 10 years, 20 years, where do you see Katapult Future Fest being? What do you want the impact of it to be, and how do you see it kind of like growing, or will it grow, or is it the perfect size now?
That is a very good question, and honestly, I don't know. I believe and hope that this point in time, Katapult Futurist can be part of catalyzing something. And in this first mover or catalyzation somewhere, or catapulting to use that, it will be preferably something that is making a solid change, like more existential change of cultures, and the realization that we are more together than we are alone. And communities are an important tool in the social impact and the change that we want to create in the world. So preferably, maybe we don't need Katapult Future Fest, or maybe there's just something else. But I honestly don't know. And I'm a person who likes sunset strategies.
Sunset strategies.
Yeah, like making yourself just that you're not needed anymore, making yourself obsolete.
Yeah, I remember. I love that. That's where I think many people go a lot wrong, especially as leaders, is that you try to make yourself more and more needed when you kind of like should see how you can make things roll without you, and actually trust in new people and new collaborations. Also something we're super thankful of, that you gave us an opportunity, and now that opportunity is a reality, and it looks actually pretty good. And amazing team who are always on the background. If we think about like Katapult's like vision and mission and kind of like the what's next, what if thinking, what are like some concrete things you have seen like come out of here to the ecosystem, to the environment? Because I know there is a lot.
Yeah. No, I think there obviously collaborations. There is a lot of people who have gotten mentors. People are showing up in companies' boardrooms. There are investments that are being done. And I think that also these tiny little things that seems like they don't matter because it's not a huge investment, like this that kind of approach, but it's actually people are making friends over years. One of the things that my like our photographer Jan that we have used every single year, he told me that people see me and come up to me and recognize me, and they send me messages for my birthday and other conferences, gatherings. People don't see me. People don't see the photographer. They don't interact with me. And I think that's some of the sign of the culture that you just pointed out as well, that people are open, but this willingness to be supportive and help each other. I think that is the really, really culture and social strength of Katapult Future Fest. And then obviously, someone stepping into someone's board or doing a direct investment is also part of it. Yeah.
And that same thing kind of like happened to you, if I understand it correctly, is that you had an idea from Slush to bring here a similar type of festival with another type of like packaging and approach. And the name Katapult in that festival, it's a larger investment company from here, right?
Yeah.
And how did you get them to believe you and join? Or were you working there already, or is there like a story?
Well, there is a story, and my dear co-founder, Taral Nusta, which is the owner of the entire Katapult system, we were at Slush. I actually met him at Slush. And we were having fun, and it's like, okay, so if we're going to do this, everybody's making accelerators. Accelerators are too slow. We need something that is faster. It's like, what is faster than the accelerators? Well, catapults. And both him and I have quite a creative, active brains. So we was like, okay, so let's call it Katapult. And then the name just stuck. And then we started out with the gathering, with the conference. That wasn't a reality until 2017, May 2017, although the idea was like born in 2015 at Slush. So it took over a year. But then we, or Tidal did start the other accelerators together with other co-founders, and it becomes this twofold strategies, which is his. One is like the commercial part, and then the other one is the ecosystem building. And you can call it philanthropic part, but it's literally also about like investing in knowledge, investing in ecosystem building, and both of them as tools for positive change in the world.
That's impressive. Because that's what I'm also thinking, like many like these kind of gatherings and festivals, especially when they're new, they're struggling with not normally the business side, but then also how to like fund and build it long term.
Yeah.
And I think here you have managed to like bring the both sides really beautifully together. And what that allows is like a platform that can flourish and create value in all of these like impact segments. So in New Nordic Way, we always say inspire, elevate, and unite people.
Exactly.
And I think that's kind of like the holy triangle that you're also operating here. Katapult is starting today. A lot of the listeners might be interested to join. Now they already have a bit of like understanding why it's done, kind of like what the big motions of it. But how is it actually looking? How are these next 3 days unfolding? What can you expect? What will you see? Where are we?
Well, you got to be here to know. I think that's I think that's but that also what most people say, right? One of the best comment that I like, or what do you call it when someone praised you, was that I didn't take any pictures when I was at Katapult because I had FOMO of not being present, which is really nice because then people are aware, are there. So I think it's part of that. But yeah, it's over 3 days. And then sorry, there's a little bit of noise here, so that's why I kind of stopped.
It's okay. It's okay. It's good.
But yeah, it's over 3 days. Today is the Investor Day, which is, I would say, also quite untraditional. It's not only venture capital, it's also a lot of private wealth there. There is foundations, so it's a very good blend of different pockets of money. And then, you know, having discussions or conversation like how does these different pockets of money work together for change, which is super important. And then again, also conversation around like how do we all kind of carry with us some sort of polycapital, like we're culture capital, we're social capital, we're political capital, like we are in you know, in the power of being human, we have the powers to change things. So that is also part of that, and recognizing that. And then there is conversations that are everything like policy from geopolitics, obviously ethics and AI, but also AI and carbon footprint. And then we have other panels where are from like boomers to millennials and the way backs, like how is intergenerational leadership. You can have, you know, 4 or 5 generations in one company these days, and with very, very different starting point of, well, when it comes to tech, but expertise and so on. And how do we harvest that, right? To other things that is like more about creativity, neuroscience, gut brain health, but then again, how do you build teams and how do you spot the good teams when you're doing investment based on that as well. So I think over the 3 days, the Investor Day and the 2 festival days that we call them, the festival days, which is more actually as a festival, like we have a teepee tent, we have parallel sessions, we have container set up. So is really diverse kind of venues and conversations and also people. So the whole, I would say, concept and idea and experience will be that you're moving into a realm, you're moving into a universe of potential change, if you want.
I like that, and it's all those things that I loved about last year. I think you're summarizing it really well. So it seems like we have been here a couple of times. Katapult, I think it's catapulting many things. That's something we can be sure of. The whole city actually wakes a bit alive, and that's also a fun part of the startup events. That yes, you have the venue, but then it's also the whole city that has a lot of these side events and side possibilities, and that's exactly that like partner network you're talking about as well, like putting those into motion. How long does it take to make like a city move when you start to do something like this, or is it like automatically on board, or does it take a time for it to wake up?
Oh, wow, that is a very good question. At some level, cities should be slow in a way, but then the other part is like, well, it should be innovative. And I think, well, that's the headaches of people down in the city hall, right? I love cities like, you know, Austin that has this slogan, like, keep Austin weird. Like if I was working in the city hall and I got this weird application from a conference called Katapult Future Fest saying like, hey, could you help, you know, fund us some capital? I would, you know, it was, if I was working there and my kind of mandate was like keeping the city weird, I would like give this gathering some capital to do so, right? But that is not always the case. And I think that's why we are working with grassroots movements together with investors. And then hopefully the cities all around the world, I think it's not only Oslo, will catch up. And they do, but I think there's absolute a lagging in that. But I know after 7 years, more and more people from the city will actually attend this year than they have previous years. And then obviously we're here at the Conduits, which is also kind of a year-round membership club for social impact. And I think having that as part of where all our participants, or KFF participants, will go throughout the week also makes it more like now I was infiltrating the city in a different way.
I love that. A lot of small nodes left and right and
Exactly.
filling out the city with impact, like inside out and outside in.
Yeah.
The theme is what if. That's like a really good question to ask. What is your what if?
Well, the what if I have worked with a lot now, obviously because of Catapult Future Fest, but I kind of made it a curatorial kind of strict framework for myself. And that is, what if gatherings or conferences could be catalysts for social, cultural, and systemic change? And for me then as a curator would be like, how, what type of facilitation, what type of venue, what type of activities, what type of conversation will kind of fuel that if I was going to support places where people meet to become catalysts for social or culture change. Because I think it's about mindset, and we need to get there somehow and activate that potential, and also not wasting times, because I feel very responsible for gathering 600 people. That's a lot of productive hours. If it was just something that didn't lead to anything, that will for me wouldn't be sufficient, or wouldn't we like I wouldn't have done my job. I was something like that, but it wouldn't be meaningful, right? So for me, that potential in activating gatherings as these change agents is definitely my what if. And to your question earlier about like the strength of the community, it's like, yeah, maybe in 10, 20 years from now, that is the strength.
There's a lot of truth in what you say. I also think it's a problem actually, like right now in the ecosystem. Goes a bit back to the like individualism that I was talking about, but people really want to meet each other. The pandemic made it like even like maybe people then woke up that how distant from each other they are. So I see that they've been like screaming for this kind of experiences. The problem is that we continued for a long time to do things the same way we did before the pandemic and then after the pandemic. And then it's kind of like you didn't want to come to the like back to the boring same old, same old. I think that's also something you've succeeded to do really well, is like keep it like evolving and growing with the times. But which, like, if you have the expertise or you have the expertise, you kind of like can have this crystal ball in your hands. In 10 years, what kind of things do you think these conferences, do you think they need to change? Do you need to think like KFF needs to change even further? Is there some certain topics or ways or models that we need to do this so that it's relevant then? Can you like
Yeah,
you understand what I ask?
that is the $1,000,000 question, because I think a lot of what happens when you become let's say, trendy, and Katapult Futurefest is moving over to that. There's certain expectation, but a trend is a trend per default, right? So a trend is like it will disappear because it's a trend. So how do you change and how do you constantly evolve? But then when you have collaborators or other, like, you know, having expectations of what you're going to be or what you're going to deliver, or if there is like there needs to be so much transaction, there's logos here and there and so on. I think one of my biggest kind of, I wouldn't say like pushbacks constantly, is to keep that curatorial creative power quite strong, so that we don't let us push from, but you had this last year, we should have it this year. Like there's like, because we are animals of habits, and we are animals of what is recognizable, and that is what people expect. But when you try to, like, the magic lies in when you give people something that they don't know that they needed or wanted, right? And surprise. And I think the largest challenge is that we get stuck in patterns, and the world isn't like that, and that's not why we want to meet, and that's not why we want to gather. But we think we want to meet and gather in that way because, like, for example, one example, and it's like, honestly, I feel it quite challenging. I have many people asking me for the guest lists, and that is a huge thing, right? And I say, like, no, but we don't share that, because, and what is interesting, when people are here, then they have to ask you, who are you? Not only once, but twice. And that's when you build relationships before transactions. But it's super uncomfortable for many.
Yeah, it's like I was once at the startup event up in northern Norway at Startup Extreme, and I remember this like shock on people's faces when you didn't get any badges.
Yeah.
Who am I when I don't have the title and the name? How can I find anyone? Like, you go and talk with the people.
I don't have an identity. What now, right? Yeah. But I think that's the beauty of it, right? That we are more than our titles. We are all even more than we think we are often, if we just dare.
Limited by our thoughts. That's what normally like how people say is like that we think that we are something, or we think that we're in some way, or we think that things need to be in a certain way, and then that kind of like is closing us off really often.
Yeah.
Closing us off from the unexpected connections and the new ideas and the new innovations.
Yeah.
And also new possibilities for collaboration. So, couple of last things here to the end. I think we have like now covered the whole KFF thing as thoroughly as it goes. So it's a beautiful story and a beautiful event. What would be your like best tips for the people to deliver a better impact? Because you've been in this like scene for now so many years. You probably have seen it all and heard it all. What would you give us the like guideline there?
Yeah, I think it's the classical thing, right? Follow your voice or follow your purpose. I think it's about daring to speak, daring to be brave, and be generous, be kind. I think there's a lot of growth. There's a lot of, like, it's fascinating, like, just that little more attention that we really try to do and give people at Katapult. It's like how much more that actually fuels the community. So I would say that.
Bravery and kindness, they're like a couple of those skills that are not that easy to develop if you're not aware of like how active you are. Like, and a lot of that comes actually from like already the parents or the society and these kind of things. Is there a way to train them?
I think so, absolutely. But it is, again, I think it's about bravery, and bravery being vulnerable. And you in the startup communities, there's a lot about, you know, failing and these things. It's like, but what is failing? It's just learning I think also not knowing everything, asking questions. Like, I don't know, Steve Jobs, I always come back to what he said about being curious and being, foolish, and like be playful and bring that in as part of your learning journey. And I think breaking down that facade so people can also see who you are for real. And also one big thing is asking for help. Like, people really want to help each other. And it's just such a powerful thing, like giving people the opportunity to give you help or receive help. But very often that is like these things that is just hard for us to do because we kind of maybe train in school, to your point, to be so successful. So maybe another podcast, let's talk about success. So what is success, right?
Yeah.
Maybe success is about being vulnerable.
Yeah. And I know there is like a Ida outside of the kind of like the KFF world as well. You have your sides when it comes to yoga and probably spirituality, listening to you, all of these sides, which I think like enrich not the experience for yourself and your own life, but also actually for how people will experience the things that you create. That's also another podcast episode would be like super interesting to dive deeper to. But I know we're closing into the end of this episode. Now you have 1 minute to inspire all the listeners to join next year. So what will you say to them?
Oh, wow. We will open up, and you asked earlier about how do we think about the conference format in the future. And I think I'm working on a model where we can open up more of the programming for meetups or other people, like co-creation. And we test it out this year. And I think we're absolutely going to do that more next year. So that's one way, come and co-create without being unconferencey, but still some frameworks. And then, check out other people who have been at Katapult and ask them, how was your experience? And try to trust them if they say, if someone tells you that, like, go to Katapult, if that's a good friend, listen.
Yeah. Listening.
That's
one of my favorite skills. And that's also a really important skill throughout the whole event, actually, to actually have the capacity to listen to each other here in the talks, but then listen also to other people talking, and not only listen so you can answer, but listen so you can understand.
Yeah.
With that said, I must thank you one more time. Thank you for trusting in us, crazy Finns from the other side of the pond. Thanks also for collaborating with Conduit and fixing us this beautiful studio to produce some cool content in collaboration with you. And thank you for joining this episode.
Thank you so much, Ronny, and the new Nordic Way for taking a leap with us. And I can't wait to listen to the podcast episode that's coming out of this.
Yeah, it will be super fun.
Yeah.
Happy KFF.
Thank you so much. Likewise.